Hello and welcome to the Cinementalist podcast for CINEMENTALIST.com. My name's Andy. Sitting next to me is Floki, our bearded dragon mascot, and sitting opposite me is Liam. How's it going, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right, man.
Nice one.
Yeah. I swear I do that intro live differently every week. But every time I listen to it back, I do it in exactly the same way. I might as well just cut it in at this point, right? Just have like a default one.
Well, I mean, it's the way everyone greets each other, as far as I'm aware.
I'm pretty sure I say that in my sleep.
What, hi, how's it going?
Yeah, and the outro as well. Where I'm like, you can check out the Patreon page at cinementalist.com. You can follow us at Cinementalcast. You can follow Liam at... Yeah.
Significant other is just, you wake up thinking, like, why have I got so many bruises, Like,
I already get that, yeah.
Her elbows move in funny positions.
That's for my snoring. I don't know how bad my snoring is because my dad is very much the same. And I'm a smoker and a drinker. And occasionally I wake myself up with my own snoring. That's when you know it's bad.
That is impressive.
Yeah, that is, it's not great.
Yeah, I haven't got to that stage yet, but I'll let you know when I do.
She's long suffering, my missus. She really, really is. There is also, I don't think you've seen him yet, but there is a fly in here at the moment.
Well, I mean, you have the absolute ideal assassin for that fly sitting in a box over there.
Well, I can't even do that either because I've been trying to get rid of him for 3 days now. And I've sprayed him a few times with a fly remover. I wanted to say that fly spray, essentially. Yeah. So I can't feed him to Floki either. But I've named him James.
James.
Because very much like James Corden, he's extremely irritating, and every time you think he's dead, he comes back.
I just noticed I said box then, but like Floki does actually have a nice big enclosure.
His tank, yeah.
He's a box tank. He's able to move. He's got lots of space to move around. He's not kept in a box, just in case any animal welfare officials are listening.
Sure, yeah, definitely. But no, there is the extremely annoying fly. You might even hear him if he gets close enough to the mic. I've had a 3-day-long battle with what is now my arch nemesis.
Maybe he can become an occasional tertiary critic.
Absolutely, yeah. I wonder what his opinion is.
If a film is really, really bad, then, it suffices to just have, like, the summary as, this is what it will do to you.
Absolutely, yeah. Fries your mind. Anyway, let's get on with film news, as we always kick off the podcast with... article from Empire here. He might not be spending his days playing Superman, but Henry Cavill is very busy regardless. Following his duties on season 2 of The Witcher, he's been filling his calendar with film work, including potentially leading the long-developing Highlander reboot and the sequel to Enola Holmes. Oh, and also Matthew Vaughn's new spy franchise, Argylle. Yeah, he's also finding time for something smaller, with Deadline bringing word that he'll start in the adaptation of The Rosie Project. This is one that's been in the works for a while now, since at least 2015. Written by Graham Simerson, this book tells the story of Professor Don Tillman, a genetics expert on the Asperger's scale who never seems to be able to land a second date. He starts the Wife Project, working up a questionnaire to find the perfect partner, but is instead entranced by the free-spirited Rosie, who matches none of his criteria, but might just be his soulmate. That sounds like romantic comedy capers gone awry. What do we think of Henry Cavill?
Well, I think that you have actually had more exposure to his work than I have for a start. But the thing is, that Cavill Highlander reboot fiasco, I was going to say fiasco, but I thought, is that fair, seeing as it's not even in existence yet?
It may be a fiasco, we haven't seen it yet, yeah.
I heard little tidbits about that, and I've heard people going, "Oh my God, how can Cavill fill the boots of Lambert?" And I thought, I love Highlander, but Lambert's not someone to scream and shout about in terms of acting skill.
Let's face it, even Christopher Lambert himself admitted that he's not a very good actor.
Yeah. He's pretty. I mean, even though I do love the character of Connor McLeod as a driving force, the best things about Highlander, and yes, I'm only referring to the 1986 inaugural film. I don't fuck the sequel, fuck the series and all that shit. The original 1986 film, the best things about that were Connery and Clancy Brown. Like, indisputably. I would agree. So I think, I'm actually more worried about other actors playing satisfactory, mentors, secondary protagonists / antagonists than I am Cavill potentially filling the main role.
No, I think he's a perfectly decent actor. Yeah, I don't think he's, set the world on fire stuff or whatever, but he did an excellent job of Geralt of Rivia in The Witcher. which actually I rewatched recently. The whole of the first season of The Witcher again.
I mean, I have heard a lot of people saying the reason he's so good as Geralt is because he's not a particularly good actor. And Geralt is virtually emotionless.
Yeah, well, quite literally. Yeah, but witches aren't supposed to be able to feel emotions.
But this is just, this is just word of mouth.
No, I think there's something to that. I mean, Geralt is a very taciturn character, but it's a very physical role, and it's a very... I mean, there's a fair bit... I've got some problems with the first season of The Witcher, actually. They announced season 2 this week in terms of release date. I believe it's December 17th. So it's been like a 2-year wait for the second season for obvious reasons. But the problem with the first season of The Witcher, it's not bad at all, but the problems are not Henry Cavill related. He is definitely the best part about it because he famously campaigned for the character as well because he's a big fan of the video games. And I think he did like a 2-year campaign to make sure he was cast for it. He's got the right physique. He can do that taciturn gruff thing. It's got a weird time-shifting mechanic in it, a non-linear narrative thing that is so badly telegraphed. Even watching it for the second time round and knowing that it was coming, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's like no telegraph. It's like 3 episodes in, it switches to an earlier timeline, except it gives the audience no clue that's happened. Until suddenly...
I remember you saying this, yeah.
Suddenly characters start cropping up being like, hang on a minute, they died in episode 1. Oh, they must have gone back in time, but have they? Because this was never made clear at any point. You know, there's ways of, you don't have to do the, 10 years later or whatever, or 10 years previously. There's ways of signaling and telegraphing to the audience that we are now back previously from where we were when we started, and it doesn't do those. No. And it's a bit of a mess that way. But there's good performances in it. I love the Witcherverse. I really think the Witcherverse is a massively... It's deep, it's dark, it's got all the things people like about the George R.R. Martin Game of Thrones stuff, except in a lot of ways darker, a lot of ways scarier and spookier and meatier. There's a lot of heavy themes within it. The show actually does start to explore. So as a long-running thing, I think it's really got legs on it. I'm really looking forward to season 2. But yeah, Henry Cavill's probably the best thing about it. And oh God, I can't remember her name. I should have had it in front of me, but the lady who plays Yennefer as well, the young female sorceress, and you see her journey going through, she's exceptional as well. So there's some really good things about it, but it's interesting how even on a second rewatch, that time-shifting non-linear thing doesn't work. And I know it's going to be there.
One thing I do know is that there's been several instances where Henry Cavill has been a catalytic factor in me getting called a cinema snob, because I hear so many people go like, oh, he's terrible as Superman, he's terrible as Superman. What do you think of him as Superman? I said I couldn't comment because I've never seen him as Superman. It's like, well, you're supposed to be a film nut, and that's when you start getting into, why haven't you seen all the Curzon artificial eye releases? Why haven't you seen all the A24 releases? Do you want to play this fucking game? It's like, I'm not interested in
You come into my house.
Yeah. So I'm not interested in them. That's
to be honest, as someone that has seen all the Superman films, again, his performance as Superman, Clark Kent, is absolutely fine. The films are really dull. And it's really odd how they've managed to make Superman dull. But
as somebody who has had the exposure that I haven't, did you say that I can't remember if I've ever asked you before, did you say that you were not impressed with Batfleck, or that you were...
No, and the whole Justice League thing as well, though I have to admit I'm yet to watch the Snyder cut, because it's 4 hours of my life, man, and I didn't really like it the first time round. I should really give it a go to make sure that, perhaps it really has been saved, but that whole thing sort of gives me the shivers.
People saying, when I laud the likes of Once Upon a Time in America or Prince of the City, and people are like, how can you watch it? It's so fucking long. It's like, I can't wait to watch the Snyder cut. It's like,
I'm fairly certain, I could be wrong on this, I'm fairly certain the Snyder cut of Justice League is longer than Das Boot. And Das Boot, which is a film that just about every film fan would say that they have some appreciation for, Das Boot is too long. And I don't see how, I don't know. I mean, the DC superhero stuff is weirdly off, and I'm not a huge fan of the Marvel stuff either. I mean, we've said that a million times on the show. They're okay and all that, but they're films for the mass market, and there's not a lot there to really hang on to if you're really into your cinema and stuff. And lots of people disagree, fair enough. The DC stuff, though, with the exception of Aquaman, that I thought was kind of fun, the DC stuff is just, the worst part about it is it's boring. And how you can make superheroes really grey and washed out and uninteresting is an odd thing. But yeah. Anyway, Henry Cavill's busy, and we're going to be seeing a lot of Henry Cavill-based stuff. I thought he was good in Enola Holmes as well.
Oh, yes. No, I remember
Sherlock. Yeah.
I recall you singing the praises of that. Yeah, you did.
Very different performance, actually. It's a very charismatic, non-taciturn, suave performance. He's been tipped to play Bond a few times as well. And I can see that. I can see how you get that.
I mean, let's be honest. He has got the fucking look.
Yeah.
He's tall. He's very handsome. He's very well
He's
built.
good at that sort of wryness that Bond needs as well. That lifting an eyebrow kind of thing is, he's got all that.
I mean, I really need to familiarize myself more with his work, because in terms of his actual acting caliber, I genuinely, as I said, I haven't seen enough of him to really form a fair opinion. So I should really do more investigation.
Check out The Witcher season 1. Like,
yeah,
it's good, but be prepared for that weird time jump.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It is Cannes week. The Cannes Festival is ongoing at the moment, and often at Cannes, somebody likes to bring along a really controversial film to give it to sort of a wider audience, but it's a very film critic and arty audience as well, and see whether they can stomach it. And this time around, it seems like they really do have a doozy, because this is Titan, or Titan, I don't know which way around we're pronouncing that, French film, widely regarded to be one of the most controversial films ever shown at Cannes.
Go on.
But audiences have been apparently reacting with laughter and horror in equal measure. I have been searching around trying to find a decent plot synopsis of this. And the closest I've come to is on vulture.com, there is a review. And they do sort of a mini synopsis at the start. So I'm going to crib from that. So apologies in advance, because I'm going to be self-editing as I read this out, just so we get the synopsis bit. But let's start off with this. Alexia is a 32-year-old woman who's lived with a titanium plate in her head ever since a childhood car accident. This has done two things. One, turned her into a serial killer, and two, given her a sexual fascination with metal. Nipple piercings will do in a pinch, but what she really likes is cars, ideally big shiny sports cars. Alexia works as a car show model because if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. She's got a mid-sized Instagram following, including a pushy creep who becomes the first, but definitely not the last, of her on-screen victims, most of whom she kills by jabbing sharp pieces of metal into their skulls. Washing up after her first murder, Alexia is interrupted by a loud banging on her door. She goes to the garage, and her car is freshly waxed and ready for action. Thus commences a passionate round of car sex, which starts with a fully nude Alexia tumbling around the inside of the automobile like it's a washer-dryer, and ends with her writhing in ecstasy while wrapped up in seatbelts, looking a little like the lead in a Detroit-themed 50 Shades of Grey spin-off.
Wow.
It's a serial killing woman who has sex with her car, apparently, and it has left Cannes audiences shocked, horrified, and in fits of giggles, all in equal measure. We must watch this.
Yes, we must. And not only must we will.
Yeah. I mean, the whole, what's the term? Autoerotic, is it? I don't know. What's the term for someone that wants to have sex with their car? I remember watching a documentary on it years ago, but if I remember correctly, it was all dudes. And they were...
is there something like... Is autoerotophilia? Is that paraphilia, like where you fuck like various types of machinery?
Someone write in and tell
might
us.
be getting that drastically wrong there.
I actually saw a BBC documentary on this subject some years ago, but it was all men, and they were all, inserting themselves into exhaust pipes was the primary thing.
Were they all like rather sort of Anunnaki basement dwelling looking?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but they were the kind of guy that you think, I could sort of see that guy fucking his own car. Yeah.
Well, it's just being fair. Like we said, you look at Henry Cavill and think, I can sort of see that guy playing James Bond.
Yeah.
You look at another type of guy and goes, I can see that guy fucking his own car. And then going down to the basement and eating some Watsits while playing, Minecraft or something.
The second part of that is me.
Huh?
The second part of that is me. The first part of that is definitely not.
Wasn't saying it pejoratively, just anthropologically.
That'll be a hell of an admission live on mic, couldn't it? yeah, actually, I'm into cars. Yeah. I mean, I'm really into cars. And my last article for the news this week, this is from filmstories.co.uk, although it's been reported on many news outlets. The long-mooted Luther movie looks like it's now become a Netflix project, with filming set to begin in September. The big screen debut of Idris Elba's Detective Luther, created by Neil Cross, might not be heading to the big screen after all. The film version has been teased for some time now, and Elba himself confirmed that the film was set to go into production this autumn. Now comes a report that suggests the ultimate destination of the movie project isn't the cinema, but Netflix. September marks the tentative start date for filming, and that suggests we might finally get to see the Luther film for the end of 2023.
Well, I mean, I love the series.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Best thing the BBC's done in a very, very long
Absolutely.
time.
Idris Elba just utterly canes it as Luther. It's really well written. It's really well acted. It's got such rewatchability, I find, as well.
There aren't many episodes of it. It's
No.
very short sort of mini seasons,
But I just think that as Luther, Idris Elba, he just portrays the cocktail of complexity and intellect and rage and dysfunction. He just, he just does it so fucking well. And
it's a weird one to me, Idris, actually, because I entirely agree with everything you just said. I think his performance in Luther is magnificent. And ever since, I haven't really seen him do anything spectacular, acting-wise. He's taken some really right down the middle of the road roles, which is interesting for someone that's able to do a serious character with such nuance and grace, I kind of want to say, yeah.
There are a couple of feature-length moments, I think, post-Luther that, did you ever see The Beast of No Nation?
No, I haven't seen that. Was that good?
Very, very good.
Oh, okay, that might be a
his
shout
performance is excellent. But yeah, you have to go a bit further back in time, unfortunately, because I know I've said it to you a million times, but seeing Idris Elba as Stringer Bell, and to me at least, it kind of puts you in a war zone of, or something of a dilemma of like, which is the more all-consumingly brilliant performance? Is it Russell Stringer Bell or Luther? Because Idris, I know I'm speaking as a Brit here, but as far as for my British ears, Idris, as a fellow Brit, fucking nails that Baltimore accent. And he's just
he is known for doing a fantastic
and
American
all
accent.
of his idiosyncrasies just work for the character so perfectly. So, yeah, you should go, I know I've said it before, but you should go back and watch that.
Yeah, it is remiss of me. And perhaps I've only just seen his big blockbuster stuff, because I know he's been working hard.
Was it Hobbs and Shaw?
Yeah.
Creme de la creme.
Yeah, Pacific Rim, and they're not necessarily bad films, but just quite middle of the road performances. And for an actor with such ability, and he's another one, funnily enough, going back to our Cavill chat, there's been touted many times for the James Bond role, and I think he'd be fantastic at it. He's got the physicality, he's got the suaveness, he's got
he's got the size, he's got the confidence, he's got the charisma.
The whole light and shade thing that Bond needs to do as well, where he's charming one minute and brutal the next. Idris Elba will be able to pull that off very, very easily.
He can be one intimidating motherfucker, and he can also be very, very convincingly relaxed. Especially if you watch him as Stringer, he's got that antisocial personality disorder level of relaxation, which is very, very unnerving, even though he's sitting there totally chill. He just does it impeccably.
Okie dokie then. Well, so ends the Henry Cavill / Idris Elba / car fucking chat. Let's get on with it. Yeah, it's been a diverse week for the news, I think,
Well, that was, because I know that you can only work with what you can find, but that was at least a hell of a lot more interesting than it has been in the past few weeks.
Yeah. That does. Because it's bound to have something there.
The Cavill stuff, the Cavill Island stuff does sound quite interesting. The Idris stuff sounds interesting, and the other thing sounds very interesting. So
please wait for our review of that one. Very much looking forward to it. Anyway, in the now and the present, Liam has 2 film reviews for us as usual. What are you going to kick us off with this week, mate?
Well, as you recall, on last week's episode, I did a little takedown of Fear Street Part 1, 1994.
Takedown might be a bit harsh. You were fairly...
that's actually, I think that's definitely...
You gave it kind of middling review.
It's probably more accurate to say rundown. I think I meant to say rundown, but I said takedown because I'm a stupid bastard. But yeah, I did a little review of Fear Street Part 1, which was, even thinking about it now, it was a moderately entertaining time passer with some cool moments. Well, since then, Part 2 has been released. Fear Street Part 2, 1978, was released on the 2nd of July. And so this opens up with 2 focal characters of the first installment locating somebody who might be able to assist them now that they have discovered the secret behind the horrifying history of Shadyside, Ohio, with otherwise normative and completely regular average Joe schmoes turning into bloodthirsty, seemingly unstoppable mass murderers. And as I said, it's revealed that there's a connection to a woman named Sarah Fear, spelt Fier, who was a witch in the 17th century, or an alleged witch, and who allegedly made some sort of satanic pact and severed her hand. And there's something at the heart of the town's folklore that is the catalyst in these phenomenally grisly, harrowing proceedings. So, two focal players. I won't mention their names in case anyone hasn't seen the first one.
This presents a little bit of a challenge for you, doesn't it? In that each film is presumably tacking on more to the plot. You have to be careful of people that haven't seen the first one.
It is, yeah. And I really, I mean, I think spoilers are an unforgivable sin. And whenever I have to tread around them, it is like, it's frustrating and like sort of usually compels overthought. But I'm trying my best. So, yeah,
crack on, mate.
Two focal players who shall not be named. They locate somebody who may be able to help them with this. And so they find a woman, and she relates to them her experiences 16 years earlier in the year 1978 at Camp Nightwing. Now, this is a summer camp that is frequented by some shady side of kids, but it's overwhelmingly made up of the domineering, preening, bullying, and just altogether unpleasant Sunnyvale lot from the initial chapter. And we zero in on Ziggy Berman, who is a young girl of about mid-teens, 14, 15, maybe fucking 16 at a push. And she's from Shadyside, and the film opens with her being chased down and beaten and slapped around and taunted and subjected to a mock hanging by some very nasty Sunnyvalers who accuse her of being a witch. You know, like she's been possessed by Sarah Fear. She's a witch. Blah 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 blah. This little fracas gets broken up by some camp counselors, and we learn that Ziggy is quite a troubled young woman. Like many other Shadysiders, she's bullied relentlessly by people from outside the town who deem every denizen of the place as being weird, and she doesn't get along well at all with her older sister Cindy, who is who's quite a straight-laced camp counselor who's always wanted to leave Shadyside and just go somewhere that might offer a happier and more prospect-imbued future. And so there's some sisterly butting of heads there, toing and froing, and it is very much that it's summer camp, bunch of teenagers, a lot of whom are very alienated and awkward, many of whom are horny, and there's something of in the initial film, you have the Shadyside sheriff, Matt Good. He appears in 1978 as a camp counselor in his late teens. And so it shines a bit of a light there on his relation to the whole sort of animosity between the two towns and how he even factors into the law there. But essentially, fear and horror strike yet again at camp. I shouldn't say yet again because this is in the past. So fear and horror strike at another point in time for the poor people of Shadyside and consequently the people of Sunnyvale. When the elder Berman sister Cindy, the goody two-shoes Cindy, her lovely boyfriend Tommy, who is also a counsellor, he starts being all weird. He has an altercation with the camp nurse, who seems very freaky and out of it, and who it transpires is actually the mother of a girl who went batshit crazy back in the 60s and sliced her friends up into little bits, and who is also posited as another victim of the Sarah Fear curse. The camp nurse goes nuts. She attacks Tommy, and then Tommy starts to exhibit very strange behaviour, and soon enough, he starts to pick up an axe and starts aiming to do terrible things to people with it. So then, yet again, in terms of chronology at least, chronological release-wise, not in terms of the linear universe of the film, a band of relatively innocent and absolutely petrified youngsters have to find a way to stop this fucking mayhem and also try to get to the bottom of the horrible curse of Shadyside.
Okie dokie.
So, Fear Street Part 2. I enjoyed this one more than the first. I thought it had a better flow. The violence actually felt a lot grislier in a way that I found gratifying, even though that might sound a weird way to describe it. It felt...
Speaking of omissions on microphone.
Yeah, well, I mean, the violence, there are some moments of abject brutality in this, but they actually felt very right atmospherically. They just felt just very much more within the fabric of the film. You know, like I said, with the first movie, there were aspects that I enjoyed, but I found that one to be an altogether forgettable popcorn horror that didn't really do anything new, didn't surprise me in any way. It didn't really grab me in with its storyline and its central conceit. The direction that the second installment takes, though, it did invest me a little bit more, and I think there's far grislier violence and just the scary moments in it, the moments that are meant to make you apprehensive and bristle, they are better executed. And I think maybe that has something to do with the summer camp environment, a lot of which is very darkly shot. There are some really enjoyable moments, like they play this Sunnyvale and Shadyside, they have this thing called the Colour War, where they put on red and green shirts, and I think there's some sort of all-out like recreational melee to see who it's like. It was like the Sunnyvalers were like, "We've never lost the Colour War." I didn't really pick up exactly what the Colour War was, but it's some kind of bullshit competition. And there's lots of moments in it where, after the game has ended, in the very, very pitch black woods, you're not sure who or what is out there, and people are scrambling for this and that and trying to get away from a menace that may not be there. Again, trying not to give anything away, even though that might sound rather incoherent babbling. But I really thought it flowed better and it had stronger character investment, personally. It's also saturated in 1970s retro soundtrack. And
I was going to say, because one of your critiques of the first film was that it wasn't like rooted in the 90s the way you hoped it would be.
Yeah, this one, the Camp Nightwing one, it makes more of an effort to accentuate the 70s time period, and it's a bit of a biased commendation here, but they play Carry On My Wayward Son several times, and that's something that always gets a thumbs up from me personally, because I fucking love that song.
That's great tune.
Yeah. And they play that several times, and it's utilised very nicely in its placement in the picture as well. So yeah, they make a far stronger effort in accentuating the time period in which it takes place. It felt a lot more 70s than part one felt like 1994, well, like 100%. And the first one to me just felt like it could have taken place anywhere and any time. There wasn't like the distinct lack of things like cell phones. It didn't feel temporally apparent in a way that served the film or even didn't serve the film. It just felt completely it didn't feel extant or important in the screenplay at all, whereas 1978 does here, like, as a matter of fact. And also, it because the first one shows the end of the first film, it shows a sort of a minor flash forward of this installment, and at the end of 1978 they show a little teaser of the third installment that's to take part in 1666, and that does look fascinating.
That's the one that interested me the most when I saw the way they were laying the timeline.
That does look fascinating because, well, I won't say exactly why, but once you've seen 1 and 2, when it gives you the teaser of the third installment, you think, okay, this is starting to look really fucking trippy as balls. Some kind of warpy thing going on temporally. So I'm I'm really interested in that one. But settling down to what's the second installment, I was thinking, yeah, I hope it's good. I do hope it's good. But seeing the teaser for the third one, I'm thinking I am actually genuinely interested in seeing that one. And I think that is sort of axiomatically bolstered by the fact that the second part in the Fear Street trilogy is the strongest one so far. I know it's only had one thing as a phrase, to be compared to, but it's definitely better. Again, it's not a sock blower offer, but it's got good tension. It has a really, really nice way, far more so, I think, than the first one. It has a really nice way of walking a tightrope between the kind of teeny bopper young adult horror that R.L. Stine is most commonly associated with, and a bit more of a hardcore adult thing, because there is like a lot of drug misuse and a couple of scenes of sex that leaves very little to the imagination. It's not something you typically associate with Goosebumps, but obviously this series of novels precedes Goosebumps.
It's more for a teen audience, yeah.
More for like like an audience,
older teen.
Yeah, like more for like an audience of 17 and 18-year-olds rather than your preteen, your adolescent thing. And I think that the film has a really nice way of walking a tightrope with that. So Fear Street Part 2, yeah, better than the first installment. If you weren't really that crazy about the first installment and you have no interest in seeing Part 2, like I said, it's not actually going to blow your mind, but it is a stronger film. And it has better set pieces, and it has just better imagination to it, a better atmosphere, a better soundtrack, and a better segue peep into what's to come. So yeah, Fear Street Part 2, it's actually decent. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
for what it's worth. Yeah,
I shall have to get going on these.
Yeah,
cool.
It's cool. It's I just hope that it comes full circle, like, because if I don't know, what I've been hoping is that the first one I was like, yeah, it was okay. The second one I thought that was a lot better. I'm just hoping with the third one, I'm thinking, okay, now that's really good. Then obviously it's going to end, so it's going to be. But who knows? We will wait and see.
You never know. He's still alive. He can write more.
I'll be back next week. And then moving on. Next up, I watched Gunpowder Milkshake.
Yeah, I'm aware of this only because I saw the title flash by and I thought it was an excellent title.
Yeah, I really, really liked the title as well, and I thought
it's a good name for a band. Gunpowder
it is.
Milkshake.
There's something incredibly snappy in it. It's a really, really superb pairing of words. The poster that the words adorn does it a great service as well. And I just thought Gunpowder Milkshake. I mean, at least they know how to fucking catch your attention.
Sure.
Really,
yeah.
really.
Do you want to go and see
title.
Gunpowder Milkshake? You'd kind of be down, wouldn't you, immediately?
Yeah, it's like,
knowing nothing about it.
You couldn't say like, no, that doesn't sound intriguing in any way, shape, or form. You're like, what the fuck is that? So basically, what the fuck is Gunpowder Milkshake? Well, it opens with a young lady named Sam, played by Karen Gillan, as she shoots the fuck out of a couple of guys in a darkened room, and then the doors burst open, and she proceeds to eliminate a great mass of thuggish, nasty-looking men with just 2 pistols. Then it cuts to 15 years earlier, in which the same young lady, Sam, who is now in her early teens at this point, sitting in a diner, waiting for her mother to turn up. And a waitress comes over and she's like, just hands her this lovely looking, delicious sort of Pulp Fiction-esque milkshake. And he's like, just the right milkshake for my favourite client, or something like that. And this young girl, is looking very wistfully and sadly out of the window on this rather rainy night. It's got a very neon, sort of weird, retro-futuristic atmosphere. This, I remember, I looked at some of the locales in the opening, and it looked a bit like something that you would maybe see in the Fallout games. It's like sort of neon-tinged, animated but not actually animated mise-en-scène that was quite visually striking. Well, the young Sam is sitting there, and a woman walks in, and the waitress walks up to her and says, "Can I lighten your load?" And the lady says, "No, thanks, I'm not carrying tonight." Right off the bat, my ears prick up and thought, okay, that's odd. But the woman who has just walked into the diner takes a seat right opposite young Sam, and it transpires that this woman is Scarlett, who is Sam's mother, played by Lena Cersei Lannister Headley.
Aha.
Yes.
Haven't seen her since Game of Thrones, personally.
Yes, I'm always quite happy to see. I've always liked her. And thankfully, she's not attempting some sort of god-awful American accent. She retains her awfully accent.
We saw her once at Comic-Con. She seemed very nice.
No, she does. She actually seems like a very, very chilled and just charismatic and down-to-earth person, genuinely does. So Scarlett sits down opposite her much chagrined daughter, who is not only going through the kind of obstreperous teenage phase, but also her father has absconded. And as we learn, Scarlett provides for the two of them as a killer for hire. And she sits down, and young Sam sees that Scarlett has got blood all over her hands. And it transpires that, sorry, it's the second time I've said that word, transpires, but it makes sense.
Well, you've done as many episodes as we have. We're bound to start repeating the same phrases.
Yes, very fucking much so. But it Turns out, right, I went for the lowest common denominator alternative. It turns out what happened was, right.
It's fine. Keep running.
Scarlett has mullered a very nasty, horrible Russian gangster. And basically, she's got to lam it. And so she tells Sam that she loves her, la-di-da-di-da. And she gets up, she makes for the door, and Sam chases after her, but is stopped physically by Nathan, played by the wonderful Paul Giamatti. Scarlett is in the car looking at her daughter, crying and stretching her arms out in the diner, and she tearfully starts the car and drives off. And then we come back to 15 years later in the present day, and it's, as if it's not obvious by now, Samantha has followed in her mother's footsteps. She is a professional killer, an extraordinarily talented one, very, very dangerous and virtually unstoppable, whether she's got gun, blade, or just her bare hands. And she works for a group known as The Firm.
Imaginatively.
Yeah, very imaginatively. See, this is the thing. I mean, The Firm, I know, maybe a lot of the, US listeners will, probably do an immediate association with something like, the Tom Cruise, John Grisham adaptation, Mitch McDear, The Firm. But whenever I think of Firm, it's just like, lads on tour, football factory,
it's a football hooligan term.
Get your Prada and your knuckle dusters, it's The Firm, But yeah, she works for The Firm, and her principal contact there, and somebody who has watched her grow up, and is something of a father figure as well as upper management, is Nathan, the aforementioned character played by Paul Giamatti. He's essentially their sort of HR department head. He handles their relations with other shadowy mob-like organisations. He gives her an assignment to go and track down an accountant, a legit accountant, who has nevertheless decided to steal millions of dollars from the firm, and she is tasked with getting the money back. She's her direct assignment is just to get the money back, but if she has to execute the guy, they're essentially encouraging her to whack him, basically. But she turns up, she locates the target, she gravely injures him, but then she finds out that the reason that the man stole all this money was to pay off a brutal band of kidnappers who have his daughter hostage, and he was trying to get there in time. So Sam takes this man to a hospital, and this is the point I need to say. The diner, this hospital, and just about every other locale in this film, they're all places that are tailor-made for people in Sam's line of work. Now, where have we heard this sort of thing before?
Oh, John Wick?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, it took me a second, but yes.
If you want to talk about heavy lifting in the...
Every film's trying to be John Wick these days, aren't they?
Yeah, but, there are kind of... little maybe cheeky nods, and then there's really heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But so essentially, she takes the man to a hospital that is, within the confines of this underworld. The doctor on duty, Dr. Ricky, played by Michael Smiley. Michael Smiley, I'm always very happy to see. He always makes me giggle, Michael Smiley. And when he's meant to be menacing, he always makes me shit my pants. He's a very, very confident man. I'm thinking like, okay, well, at least he's here for a bit.
Sure.
That's always good. It's good to see Michael Smiley, even if just for a bit. But she drops the father off and instructs Dr. Ricky to patch him up. And then she goes to do the exchange with the ransom money and this guy's little girl and get her out of there. And things... they go a bit 50-50. She does manage to get the girl back, but there is a lot of extreme violence and destruction involving the band of kidnappers and also some guys from the firm who have been sent by Paul Giamatti to talk Sam around because this excursion to rescue the little girl was not part of her mission, and she is to cease and desist immediately. But she doesn't want to do that. So, smash, bang, wallop, lots of blood, lots of guts, lots of bone breaking, shooty. And Sam is now primary custodian for this young daughter of this accountant who, it's not a massive spoiler, he doesn't pull through in the hospital. So now Sam finds herself lumbered with this 8-year-old girl. who seems to be weirdly subdued and fine with everything that's going on around her. I mean, I'm not going to complain about a lack of incessant quarter-walling, but she seems sort of almost psychopathically subdued. And she even talks about serial killers and stuff at one point. It's a weird little sort of underpinning, I think, to the film's girl power message, which is unfortunately delivered in rather rote and thinly imagined fashion. And eventually Sam re-teams up with her mother, Scarlett, played by Lena Headey, and it also turns out that Scarlett and Sam have a connection to a Sisterhood of Assassins featuring Carla Gugino, Angela Bassett, and Michelle Yeoh. They're all like a little gang of expert female assassins, and they're like, they're thick as thieves, they're close as sisters, and they've all got the multiple generations of women going to band together and help each other take down not only the firm who have ordered Sam's neutralisation, but also the goons of Jim McAllister, played by Ralph Ineson, Finchy from The Office.
Yeah.
Putting on an American accent that isn't that bad, really. I didn't expect him to be able to pull it off, but he's okay. So basically, rivals coming from all corners, and it's, overloaded.
I have to say, that's a hell of a lot of exposition for what I'm assuming you're about to tell me is a John Wick ripoff.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your review. It's just like, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there, right?
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot. There is a lot going on. Some of the fight sequences are pretty enjoyably made. They are. But cobbled together derivation of John Wick explicitly, and maybe to a lesser degree, the Kill Bill films. There's a lot of humour in it that basically never lands. And as I said before, it has a feminist message that is illuminated very thinly and unimaginatively, and it seems like just a very superfluous tack on. Just a sort of a sentiment that's actually been articulated to a far stronger degree by other crime-oriented thriller movies. I mean, I know I wasn't overly enamoured of Promising Young Woman, for example, but Jesus Christ, is that a hella fucking superior film in conveying its intent in a more convincing way than this one is. It's just, I couldn't actually believe how the bare-faced cheek of it's like, the diner, it's a diner that's just made for assassins. It's a hospital that's just made for assassins. It's the such and such just made for assassins. I'm just thinking, like, where's their version of the Continental? Where's the fucking hotel run by Ian McShane? It's just, I was thinking, like, this is such, like, obvious and just completely shameless nicking from John Wick. It is so obviously nicking from John Wick. And yeah, the Kill Bill thing, the badass women, adept at both, hand-to-hand combat, but also some level of gun fu, just lifted straight from Beatrix Kiddo and the like. And it is just trope after trope of recycled material with action sequences that start out entertaining and quite fluidly choreographed and attention-grabbing, but the film is absolutely overloaded with them. You talk about the John Wick sequels getting progressively just, the violence becomes so incessant, it's almost approaches a level of white noise where the viewer just becomes completely disoriented. But this is very much in that tradition. It's just there's so many fucking massive massacre splatterfest gunfights. It got to the point like where it's just very, very, very tiresome. And yeah, Gunpowder Milkshake, it's just one big rip-off. There's nothing memorable about it. There's nothing groundbreaking about it. It is absolutely forgettable popcorn. And you'll just be wasting your time watching it, I'm afraid. So, yeah. Shame. Really cool title. Very sucky material.
Absolutely. Yeah, sounds like it.
So, yeah. But, yeah. Sorry, folks. I wish I had some more awesome things for you.
Okie dokie then. Well, TV of the week. And boy, have I given myself a task this week. Or rather, this show has given me a task. Because I'm going to review The Innocent, which is on Netflix. It's a Spanish set and Spanish language production miniseries. Spanish title is El Inocente, based on the Harlan Coben novel of the same name. This is a series of books that I have not read. And it came out in April of this year. to, I'll get on to what everyone else thought of it in a minute, but I need to do some plot setup here. And boy, is this going to be an uphill battle. But I'm going to do my best, okay?
I mean, it's got to be better than the waffling I just fucking did.
Well, I'm gonna try not to waffle, but there's so much to fit in here, and I'm probably only going to go halfway into the first episode. But let's give this a go. So we first meet Matt, played by Mario Casas. He is in a nightclub in Spain, and he's drinking with his brother at the bar. It's a big rave nightclub, lots of lights going off, DJ rocking out. And he's tired and he's about to go home. And he says to his brother, look, I've got to be up early in the morning. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to go. As he's leaving, he runs into a beautiful girl on the dance floor who starts making eyes at him and dancing with him. So he starts dancing with her. And they're having a good time together. His brother's looking on from the bar going, so you're not going home then. You know, obviously having a better time with her than you were with me. Anyway, he's having a lovely time until it's noticed that he is dancing with this girl by Hugo. Hugo is not very happy that the girl he is after is being danced with by Matt. So he goes up to his brother at the bar and says, what's your brother doing with my potential next conquest? They start getting into a bit of back and forth, to and fro. Hugo says, come on then, let's take this outside. So they all go out the front of this nightclub, and Matt sees his brother being taken outside by this big gang of guys and follows them out. A big fight erupts, huge brawl. And there's lots of punching and screaming and kicking, big mass dust up outside of this bar. Matt gets pulled into the fray. He gets punched in the nose. He's bleeding. He can't really see what's going on. A guy comes up to him, about to hit him, and he pushes him backwards. The guy goes backwards and lands on a large stone, like a rock wall outside the nightclub, instantly breaking his neck and killing him. So we then see Matt, even though he was essentially just pushing this guy away from him, being put into the back of a patrol car. And a montage begins. A very, very, I was going to say a very long montage. It's not necessarily a long montage, but there's a lot in it. And I'm going to do my best to get every single one of these in the right sequence. So it's a montage with a narration from Matt in the third person, going essentially, your name's Matt, and this is what happened to you. So Matt is sent through the court process, and despite the fact that he was essentially defending himself, just about everybody at the scene, all of Hugo's gang, lie in court and send Matt to prison for 4 years. We get some sequences of him in jail, all this sort of big synth soundtrack underneath it, where he's obviously having a pretty bad time. He's getting pushed around by some of the bigger inmates. They're knocking his food over. They're treating him pretty badly. While he's in jail, his parents die, and he's allowed to go to the funeral, but he's then put back in again. He at one point goes on leave for a day and runs into another beautiful woman, Olivia, played by Aura Garrido. And they have a night of passion together, and he decides, and he tells you this over the voiceover, not to tell her that he's in jail and he's out on day release. He just wanted this one night with her. They arranged to meet up the next day, but of course he stands her up because he's now locked back up again. His brother, meanwhile, has founded a paralegal firm and is doing rather well for himself. And when Matt is eventually released from prison, he goes to work for his brother. And they run this legal firm together and actually make a huge success of it. They're minted, business is going well, his life has been turned around, he's out of jail, he's put it all behind him. And to his delight, he runs into Olivia again, who turns up for a job interview one afternoon. And so they get together. Unfortunately, his brother then experiences a brain hemorrhage and dies suddenly one day. So all of a sudden, Matt is left with the business on his hands and this horrible past to contend with, okay? End of montage. So we now see Matt and Olivia, and they are house hunting because Olivia is pregnant. And they found this beautiful house in these Spanish suburbs, and they're looking around it, and they're absolutely overwhelmed with it. It's fantastic. He's got the money to buy it now. Their lives are going fantastically. Matt looks out the window while they're looking around this house and sees that Hugo and the girl that Matt was dancing with that led to this whole situation in the first place actually live in the house opposite on the street.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he points this out to Olivia. Olivia at this point now knows that he was in prison for this amount of time. She's all on the up and up with that. They've now got this mutual relationship between each other where everything's out in the open. He goes, look, I know we love the house and everything, but we can't move in here because that guy lives across the street. She goes, okay, no worries. We can keep looking for different houses. She then gets a phone call from her boss saying that she needs to go to Berlin for a couple of weeks on work. So she says to Matt, I'll be fine. She's only just pregnant. She hasn't even begun to show yet. I need to go to Berlin for a couple of weeks. Are you going to be okay by yourself? And Matt says, yeah, sure, fine. So she goes off to Berlin. Matt goes about his daily life running this legal firm when he gets a message on his phone from Olivia, and he opens it, and it is a photo of a man holding Olivia's phone, holding it up to a mirror, selfie style. A very gruff and scarred face looking man, looking very seriously and intently into the camera. He thinks that's weird. He messages Olivia, who's that? Gets no response. So he goes out on a house call to a apartment of a little old lady that's being foreclosed, and he's acting as a lawyer on her behalf. He manages to put off the debt collectors from taking over the property. And when he goes outside the house, he gets another message on his phone. And when he looks it over, it's now a shot of a blonde wig and a pair of high heels, also from his girlfriend's phone. He's thinking, this is really weird. And then he gets another video, and it's a video of a hotel room number. And then it's a shot of a woman lying in lingerie on a hotel bed, wearing a blonde wig that looks suspiciously like Olivia. And then the camera pulls round, and it's the same guy that was in the photo earlier, except this time he's completely stark naked and looking menacingly into the camera. So Matt calls up Olivia. Absolutely no response. Calls her again and again. Absolutely no response from her. He's really starting to freak out now. Who is this weird guy? That looked like my girlfriend, except she was wearing a blonde wig. What the hell's going on here? He notices that there's a car that seems to have been following him around all day. And it's now parked a few spaces down from him where he is outside this woman's house that he was helping out. So he notices the driver behind the wheel. He walks up to the car yelling and shouting, "Why are you following me?" The car pulls out, knocks him over, and leaves him sprawled on the street. A man gets out of the car, pulls out a silenced pistol from inside his jacket, and holds it to Matt's head and pulls the trigger. Except it just clicks. It was a warning, essentially, but a warning from who? And the guy goes and drives off. Matt's taken into hospital. He's questioned by the police. He won't say anything about it because he knows he's an ex-con. He doesn't want to get accused of anything he hasn't done. So he begins to enlist the help of not only one of his colleagues, Zoe, but also the mother of the man that he pushed over outside the nightclub. Turns out they've been meeting up every week since he's been out, and it works as like a therapy session for them both. They go to an art gallery, and she calls him by the dead guy's name, her son's name, and they have these weird conversations. So he starts to enlist her as well because she works at a bank, and she can pull Olivia's bank records. Turns out Olivia has pulled out a very, very large sum of money, their entire life savings, in fact, and has seemingly gone off the grid. So Matt now has to figure out what the hell's going on with his life, where his girlfriend is, and who this strange man is who's sending him messages from her phone. Are you all up to date with that?
Yeah, that's a lot. But it sounds like I want to know more.
Well, I haven't even got into the second episode yet, where we meet Detective Ortiz, who is a woman who grew up in a convent with nuns because her father killed himself when she was younger. And she's investigating now as an adult the death of or potential suicide of a nun that jumped out of a convent window. Except when they do the autopsy on the nun, they find out that she's got fake breasts, she's covered in tattoos, and she recently had consensual anal sex. And that all ties back into the plot as well.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, El Inocente, the innocent. Yeah, wow is right. This has got layers upon layers upon layers, like an onion or like a DreamWorks animated ogre, depending on your preference. It stacks narratives on top of each other in a way that it kind of throws information at you like bowling balls. And there were so many points during watching this where I completely lost the plot. And I really thought that it was spinning off into something that, suddenly you've forgotten the original story because it's focusing on some other story over here. And then it does that wonderful thing at the very last minute of tying these plots back in together again. But boy, does it expect you to keep up. It's really massively, massively pacey, really pacey, heart-stoppingly pacey. And it's like the series is running ahead of you and occasionally coyly looking over its shoulder and going, well, keep up then, come on, come with me. And I kind of love that about it because it's absolutely gripping Really, really gripping you. I suddenly found myself massively into it. You're going to watch the first episode. Anybody listening who's going to watch this, you're going to watch the first episode, even with my explanation of it, and you're going to lose the thread at a couple of points. The show expects you to. It's waiting for you to do that. It's throwing red herrings, double bluffs, twists. At points, it does linear narrative mixed with non-linear narrative. It does scenes from the last episode in the end, and it does scenes from before in like the third episode, and it's all throwing them into the mix, and you're going, hang on a minute, I don't know what's going on here. And then all of a sudden it twists around to a point where you go, yeah, that does all link together. It's a puzzle box of a show done with rapidity and pace and great acting. It looks fantastic. I was trying to find a term for it earlier, but there's a certain Spanish cinematography look. Do you know what I mean by that? Like a Pedro Almodovar kind of thing. I think Almodovar has such an influence on Spanish cinematographers that there's kind of a vibrancy and a paciness that
I think I know what you
recognizably Spanish.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in the way that something's recognizably Mexican by like Hollywood films stick a yellow tint over the top of it and go, oh, isn't it hot? There is like a Spanish cinematography look. It's got that to it as well. But man, I really, really enjoyed chasing down the mystery. This isn't a series with a narrative. This is a series with 15 narratives, maybe more, in fact, that it manages to pull apart and dissect and layer in front of you in linear and non-linear ways until your head spins. But you're so intrigued by it that you start making theories in your head. The show wants you to do that as well. It wants you to test your theories against it. It leads you down garden paths in different directions, and there's something much cleverer with it at the end. It's a real piece of work, this thing. I mean, it was fantastically well reviewed when it came out. I've only seen it flash up on my Netflix feed like twice, and it's a bit of a dull period at the moment, if I'm quite honest. There's a lot of series in production that I'm waiting to finish so I can review them on the podcast, that sort of thing. I was clicking around and thought, oh yeah, I remember seeing really good reviews of that. I'll give it a go. Wow, what a piece of work! It is exceptionally well written and it's gripping. It really is. It is tense, clever, intelligent. Doesn't speak down to the audience. It's fantastic stuff. And I just don't think it got the big audience that it deserved. So I'm really hoping anybody listening, if any of that sounds intriguing to you, I mean, I've bet all of that explanation there, I've barely even scratched the surface. It is a puzzle box of a show. And I massively enjoyed untangling the puzzle box.
Holy shit, man. That's just, I mean, that just sounds wonderfully mad and adventurous. And
so many moments in this.
I have to see it. I just have
so many moments where the top of my head came off. I was like, no way. And midway through watching it, I went out to dinner with my partner and we suddenly spent the next 2 hours deliberating theories of what was going. You know when something gets you that good? Yeah. The narrative's that good where you can think around it and see all the different ways. And what does this mean? Is this guy who he says he is? And you know what? The show's deliberately doing that, but it's also got a better explanation than the one you'd come up with. Just the writing is exceptional. I imagine the books are fantastic. You can easily see it's one of those ones where you can tell the book's good because the series has got that layering in it. You can tell these are one of those novels or when you pick it up, you read the first 10 pages and then you have to finish it. The series has that quality to it as well. It's a really exceptional bit of writing and I'm just impressed. It's impressive from all angles. A real chase the mystery down thriller with some gumption and some go and some real intelligence behind it as well.
I'm excited. I can't wait to watch that one.
Do it, man. You will not be disappointed. Well, then, we better finish off with some trivia, as we always do. Caught between a rock and a hard place again this week, because did R.L. Stine last week, so that's Fear Street out. Gunpowder Milkshake, well, I could see just from the initial summation that wasn't going to have anything interesting trivia-wise. And then we've got Innocent, where I don't really want to give anything away. So what I've done instead is facts on Spanish film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I thought we do, occasionally we do a geography-based one.
Yes, indeed.
And Spanish film is quite interesting.
Let me hear some Spanish film facts.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick off with these. The history of film in Spain began at the end of the 19th century. In 1895, Barcelona held the first film exhibition. A year later, the cities of Madrid and Barcelona began screening movies by the Lumiere brothers, some of the most famous French filmmakers. The first movies made in Spain appeared in 1897. It's not known which came first, but some of the first Spanish movies were, and prepare for some pronunciation, Salida de la Misa de Doce de la Iglesia de Pera de Zaragoza, which is, in English, Exit of the 12 o'clock Mass from the Church of El Pilar of Zaragoza, by Eduardo Jimeno Parameta, and Plaza de Puerto in Barcelona, Plaza of the Port in Barcelona, by Alexandre Promio, amongst others. Wow, I'm impressed with my own pronunciation there. That's probably rubbish to any Spanish listeners. But any film with the title Exit of the 12 o'clock Mass from the Church of El Pilar of Zaragoza needs to be seen by all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. Hell yeah.
The silent Spanish film industry was centered around Barcelona in 1914. During this time, the Españoldas, the historical Spanish epics, were very popular. These movies by Florian Rey were definitely the most famous of these. In 1928, the Spanish movie industry shifted its focus to Madrid. Here, Luis Buñuel and Ernesto Giménez Caballero set up the first film society. Buñuel also created a movie with Spanish painter Salvador Dali. Their movie, Un Chien Andalou, an Andalusian dog, has become one of the most famous avant-garde Spanish movies of that period.
Have you seen Un Chien Andalou?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I would assume with Dali's involvement, it would be.
It's fucking nuts, man. There's, even though it's like, it's over 90 years old now, but it's got some moments that will just haunt your dreams, honestly.
The great gains made by the Spanish film industry in the 1930s ground to a halt by the start and devastation of the Spanish Civil War. Franco's right-wing government brought increased censorship, and Spanish cinema during this time became an ideological tool to steer the population in favour of the new regime. Dubbing quickly became a way of deleting dialogue that appeared to challenge the values or ideology of the regime. By the 1950s, Franco himself began to script films about traditional Spanish folklore, gypsies, crusades, as well as melodramatic romances. That'd be quite an interesting thing to watch, wouldn't it? Like a Franco-edited and scripted film.
Well, like so, was it Francoist propaganda films?
Yeah, but he actually seemed to have like a personal hand in adjusting them in order to keep up the fascistic ideology, I suppose.
It's interesting. We're seeing like, the Spanish equivalent of stuff like Triumph of the Will. Or one of
exactly, yes, that's what I was thinking.
Or like, because even though like her alliances have been called very much into question, like Leni Riefenstahl was an incredibly talented filmmaker. So I'd be interested in becoming familiarised with the Spanish equivalents, within that kind of regime. I didn't even know that about Franco.
I have to say, my only real knowledge of Spanish cinema, and I'm ashamed to say, is Almodovar, of whose films I've seen most of them, I think. But I'm sure there's some really interesting stuff in their back history as well. We must do some research on this. We do a Spanish premium episode or something like that. Did you know that Europe's only desert is in Andalusia? The outdoor scenes of many spaghetti westerns, or tortilla westerns as they should be called, very good, especially those with a relatively higher budget, were shot in Spain. The Badlands of Spain proved to be such an ideal substitute for America's Wild West in such movies as A Fistful of Dollars and its sequel, A Few Dollars More. David Lean also filmed parts of Lawrence of Arabia with Peter O'Toole there, and many years later, Steven Spielberg returned with Harrison Ford to film scenes for the Indiana Jones series. Now, that's interesting. I knew the spaghetti western stuff, a lot of it was filmed in Spain, but the Indiana Jones stuff as well. Apparently it's a very famous desert for filmmaking, the Andalusian.
Oh, well, I wasn't aware of that. I took it for granted that pretty much the overwhelming majority of the Dollars trilogy was filmed in Italy.
You would assume, because they've got sort of deserty kind of wastelands as well. But thinking about it, Spain's a much bigger country and you'd expect it to have... according to this, it's Europe's only proper desert.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. If it was going to be anywhere, it makes sense that it would be Spain.
I tell you what, watching El Inocente, The Innocent, it's just made me... It's given me my taste back. It reminded me of when I was a film student watching the Pedro Almodovar stuff. We did... a couple of, probably about 6 months on Almodovar's work. And it's made me really sort of excited to check out more Spanish cinema and see what's going on there. Was it Time Crimes?
Time Crimes, yeah. Cronos Crímenes.
That's an excellent Spanish film as well. I really must do my research on this.
Yeah. There are some brilliant Spanish movies, man. Loads and loads of great stuff. Like, did we watch... Did we watch Cell 211 together?
Yeah,
the Spanish prison one.
That was good.
With Louis Tosar as a mala madre, bad mother. There's some cracking Spanish.
I do apologise for any Spanish-speaking listeners as well. I had to just run at the pronunciation on those because I used to know a bit of Spanish, but most of it has left me, unfortunately. I do my best. It's not as bad as Icelandic, put it that way.
At least you don't say things like Majorca.
Majorca, yeah. Jalapenos.
Jalapeno.
Anyways, thank you so much for listening to the Cinementalist podcast this week. That's the end of our free episode. We're going to go and record the premium now, and we're going to talk about, well, actually, Liam's going to kick off with a couple of extra takes for us.
3 of them in total.
3 extra takes, indeed. And then we're going to finish off our discussion from last week because we were talking about robots in movies. And unsurprisingly, we run out of time. So we have a few more to cover. So we're going to finish off with those. And I have a lovely extra quiz that I found for Liam on the internet, as I like to do, which apparently Liam is going to reveal what movie robot you are.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm very, very much looking forward to the results on that one.
Yeah.
But if you fancy joining us for those extra reviews and discussion on all things cinema and media related, please do check out the cinementalist.com website for a link to our Patreon page. You can follow us. Here I am. I'm right back in the middle of the rundown again. You can follow us at Cinementalcast on Twitter, and you can follow Liam at
the Movies at Wacko Jacko's Flicks.
Excellent. Yeah, that sort of sums it up this week, mate. Anything to add?
No, as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope you're all having a merry time out there. And just take it easy. Keep on watching some good shit.
Watch some Spanish stuff and watch The Innocent. I'd really like to get some feedback what other people thought of that as well. I just don't think it got the audience it deserved. So please.
Well,
you've
set that up tantalizingly enough for me. I think we're going to have to jump on that one.
There's so much more. So much more. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you on the premium. If not, free one next week. Take it easy.